From Acton Town to Wimbledon, from Brixton to beyond. Come love your London with us and sing with us this song. There's no more smog, but we've a vlog to brighten up your day. Come love your London with us, from Kew to Haringey. Come out with us and play. Love your London, have a banana.
Welcome to our 7-part series on the London Borough of Barking and Dagenham. Throughout this series, we'll be trying to cover every corner, we'll be visiting pubs, we'll be talking about painful history, but in episode 1, we're going to be centring ourselves around Barking town centre. And as always, we start at the station, Barking. Hello and welcome to another series. We've just finished Balham and Tooting. Here we are in Barking and Dagenham. In Essex. Barking's in Essex, but it is part of the Greater London sort of metropolitan area. Now, just to explain that Barking and Dagenham used to be two separate towns, but they've sort of been brought together by the borough. But I must say that the people of Barking and Dagenham, I've been asked to say this, do not really necessarily feel that they are this one and the same block. They are two very separate identities. We'll be seeing that in the first 4 episodes. We'll be talking mainly about Barking, and then we'll be Barking and the environs, and then we'll be moving on to Dagenham and places like that, like Becontree, and it's going to be very exciting. Anyway, so here we are in Barking. Welcome to Barking. It's actually really a historical place, much older than you may think. But as I said, the two towns of Barking and Dagenham were brought together as the London Borough of Barking in 1963, but the people of Dagenham clearly felt left out, so in 1980 it was rebranded as Barking and Dagenham, and then in 1994 it expanded to include Becontree, so hold on to your hats. But we're at a station, and as always, we always like to try and start with a little bit about the station. We won't go into too much detail. As you can see, this amazing roof, and the outside it's got this sort of interesting cantilever. That's because this station is based on the Roma Termini, the main station in Rome, the Stazione Roma Termini, and this is obviously a Grade 2 listed station, of course. Fantastic, I think. Yes, so this was built in 1854. It's on the District Line, it's the terminus of the Hammersmith and City Line, and it's on 2 different national rail lines operated by C2C. Funny enough, C2C is owned by Trenitalia, which also maintains the main station in Rome. However, this is a complete coincidence. And it's also on the overground because it links the new Barking Riverside station to Gospel Oak. The station is in Zone 4 and it is fully accessible. Yay! And not only that, they have toilets and they are accessible as well. We haven't heard that sound for a long time, have we? Now, in spite of there being a pub over there called the Spotted Dog, this place has nothing to do with dogs. This station, Barking, was voted by the people of the United Kingdom as the 5th worst station in the whole country. It was quite an extensive survey carried out in 2018 by an independent watchdog called Transport Focus. And as I said, Barking came 5th, which I think is really unfair because it's got great connectivity, great accessibility, and it's a nice station, and it's based on an Italian classic, so not really sure why. But there is lots of interesting things. There's something else interesting about the station. If you get off on the District Line heading east, you will notice that the train doors open on both sides. That is quite rare. Obviously it happens on the DLR when you're in Canary Wharf. The stations open both sides, the train opens both sides rather. I think it happens westbound on the Central Line when you're in Stratford as well. But this is the only case of this happening on the District Line. And so that's why that deserves special mention. And I'll tell you something else really interesting about this station. There is a direct route to here from Yiwu in China, right on the east coast of China. Probably not running right now because it runs through Russia, but it opened on the 3rd of January 2017, sort of reopening the old Silk Route. Well, it's actually a freight route. So on the 3rd of January 2017, 44 containers left Yiwu. It stopped at Duisburg in Germany. 10 containers were taken off, and the remaining 34 made it here to Barking, where they were unloaded. Packed full of wonderful things to satisfy our urges for Chinese junk.
I mean, come on. We all know somebody who could use a wiggly witch. Gotta have a wiggly witch.
Oh, now here, this is a Lloyd's Bank, as you can see. It didn't used to be a Lloyd's Bank. This used to be a shop called Guy Norris, and that was a record and bookshop. And it was here where a young, fresh-faced Billy Bragg had his Saturday job. Billy Bragg, you're going to hear this name quite a lot throughout the series, not just in Barking, but in Dagenham as well. Billy Bragg is a local hero here. He is a folk singer, of course. He's still alive, he's still very much alive, and he's an activist. He started off in a band called Riff Raff and then went solo, and you'll always see him at Glastonbury, especially in the left field tent, and you'll see him at most festivals around the country. But yeah, this was his Saturday job, and it probably influenced him a lot working in a record shop. He heard a lot of music that he liked, stuff like The Clash and things like that. In the description below you'll actually find an interesting little link to a YouTube video. It's an interview with Billy Bragg fairly recently, and it's called The Streets I Ran. Don't click on it now though, wait until the end of the video, and then you'll learn a little bit more about Billy Bragg, and as he walks around his old stomping ground and laments at the death of all the many pubs that he used to go to. But there are a couple of pubs that are still around, so yeah, let's have a wander now towards the Barking town centre. It's actually really good. It's really good. I think you'll enjoy it. Lots to see, lots to ponder over.
£6. Would you like anything?
I'll have some garlic mayonnaise. Garlic mayonnaise.
No chili?
Lovely. So this is fantastic. £6.
Thank you very much. Like salad.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Salad, no
Garlic mayonnaise with chips. We're at the Barking Learning Centre at the moment. Now, talking of learning, perhaps I should have learnt something this morning, because look, it still says Balham. That's really embarrassing, because I'm normally a perfectionist. I have printed it out, but it's still in the printer. And we're filming 4 episodes today, so in fact you're going to have to wait until episode number 5 before you see this emblazoned with the words Barking and Dagenham. Just pretend it says Barking and Dagenham in case you see it out of shot. Now, I don't want to have to edit everything out and blur things out. It's just going to take so long, and it already takes me so long. This is a really complicated process, so please like, please subscribe, please share our videos. Hit that notification bell when you do subscribe, because that really helps. If you haven't done so already, it doesn't cost you a thing. Write in the YouTube comments as well, and if you want to become our patron, then we can sort of we can probably get a better printer that doesn't take about 10 minutes to print, because that's why I was in such a hurry this morning. I then forgot to pick it out of the paper printer. So there you go. We're not there, we're in Barking and Dagenham, but just ignore that when you see it. Now, this is the Barking Learning Centre. Fantastic place, this. There's so much, especially for young kids. There's a library, there's a sort of like a digilab place where people can print things, and it's all very exciting. There's a cafe, there's so much, but the most interesting thing is right through this door here. Now follow us as we go in. You're gonna like this. Watch this. Here we are. Let's see. Speaking a little bit softer here, because we're in a library, but see here, the Library of Things. This is fantastic.
They literally mean.
Yes.
Literally mean. library of things you can take out and borrow.
Yes, there are some of these cropping up all over London. East London only has 3. One is in Hackney, the other one's in Dalston, and the other one is in Barking, which is just here. Basically, I mean, you can borrow something rather than buy it. I guess rent is probably a more accurate term, because you don't have to pay. But compared to other rental companies, this is an absolute bargain. And of course, it avoids waste. Do you really want to buy an expensive ice cream maker, for example, that you may use once and realise it's not for you? But you can rent one here for £6 a day. Maybe you want to bring your mates around to watch a game of England playing in the World Cup, and you'd like a big projector. For £16 a day you can hire a projector, and I think there are cheaper rates if you want to hire it for a week or longer, but it's great. You can hire a projector, have your mates around, and there you are. You don't have to at the expense of all the bulbs and all the other stuff that comes with owning a projector. I do apologise, it's cheaper than £16, it's £13 a day to hire a projector. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, I have to speak very softly in here, which, there we go. Look at that, they have strimmers, hedge trimmers, jigsaws, sewing machines, not 1 but 2 projectors, hand sanders, wet and dry vacuum cleaners. This place is brilliant, and what a lovely idea. It really reduces waste. I mean, so many people buy things like bread makers and ice cream makers. I in fact bought a bread maker about 15 years ago. Never ever used it. Ian Sinclair, fantastic. Great writer if you're a fan of psychogeography. I don't know, I sort of think that our channel has a certain element of psychogeography to it. Okay, so we are here in the town square. It's a lovely little town square. You don't really see town squares like this anymore, so close to London. Feels like a village, doesn't it? Or feels like a town. Doesn't feel like feels like we're outside of London. Well, we're in Essex, but you know what I mean. This is the Barking Town Hall. Great building. Look at the clock. Just look at that clock up there. If you notice, the little it doesn't have like the tiles just for the 5 minutes, but there's actually a tile for every single minute. So there's 60 little tiny tiles going round. Fantastic. Really, really good craftspersonship. This square has got so many interesting things. I think the very first thing that stands out is this. What is this? Let's check it out. What do you think it is?
Well, it's sure mixed up, that's for sure. It's sure mixed up. I would say that these definitely look a lot older. That looks like it might be from an original church or something that either got bombed or burned down. Yes?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them up here with the pigeons on them. Sky rats. Boy, that's a mess. Look at that pigeon. It's got something sticking out of it. Ugh.
This is, in fact, when do you think it was built?
Well, I would say that might be a hint, but I doubt it's something.
You doubt it? You're right.
Part of it might be that, but I don't think any of it's that old.
That bit is 1862.
Okay.
But everything else is more different type. This is, in fact, a folly. And it was built. It's a folly, and it was built in 2007.
Yay!
2007. This is wonderful.
So the sign is 1862.
Yes,
but
and some of these may be medieval. I don't know. Now, and the reason for this is, and it's quite practical, really. This is the back of Poundland and Iceland.
Exciting.
Yes. It's not very nice, seeing that the rest of the town square is so beautiful. So basically, it's just to hide an ugly building, and this is absolutely fantastic. So, and now this was designed by a team of architects called MUF. M-U-F. You'll see in the subtitles that it's all done in lowercase. That is not a typo. That is how they like to style themselves. They're a fantastic team. Female run, they've never ever had fewer than 80% females on the workforce. This won the European Public Space Prize in 2008. They've done loads of things in this square, absolutely wonderful, and it's great because it gives a real opening to future female architects. Maybe among them there is the next Zaha Hadid, for all we know. It's about time we had a fantastic British architect representing the ladies. So yeah, there you go, Muff. Okay, look at this. Yes, I don't think it...
It is made out of stone. Probably COVID. Yeah?
No, I don't think it's ever worked. This is another thing made by Muff. This stone tree trunk with a tap in it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. I believe... I'm not sure if it's ever worked. I don't think it's ever been plumbed in. Well, maybe you can say in the comments if you've ever seen this working. I don't believe it's worked for a while.
It's a neat thing.
It is lovely, isn't it? And in fact, this has been built following a lobbying campaign by the Asbestos Victim Support Group to have some sort of memorial here. Because the only thing that can alleviate asbestos poisoning apparently is water, and that's why they built this tree memorial fountain carved out of Portland stone. Okay, now this is the arboretum.
Cool. Trees.
Arboretum, another lovely little thing that I believe the Muff girls were in charge of. If not, I will fix that in the comments. Okay, sorry. What I love about this are the benches. I mean, if you just have a look, there's a nice long bench here. Yeah, well, there's 40 mature trees here from 13 different species. We're on Bobby Moore Way. Bobby Moore Way, another famous Barking son. Bobby Moore, of course, was the captain of the England team that won us the World Cup in 1966. Bobby Moore was famously a West Ham player from 1958 to 1974. He did go on to play for Fulham and then a few clubs abroad across the pond. As I said, he was born in Barking. He actually went to Westbury Primary School, now known as Ripple Primary School because it's on Ripple Road. Now, if they were changing the name, why didn't they change it to Bobby Moore School? I think they've missed a trick there. Anyhow, at least he gets his street. Now, of course, we're going to be visiting later on in this series Waverley Gardens, which is where Bobby Moore grew up, and he lived there until he married his sweetheart Tina, and then they moved out, but his parents still lived there. In fact, were still living there when he won the World Cup. That's the end of episode 1. Now go and watch that documentary about Billy Bragg being interviewed. It's quite fun. There's a link down there. Of course, next episode we're going to be checking out Abbey ruins and everything. It's really exciting. But so till next time, bye! Next time on Love Your London, we'll not only be looking at what remains of the old Barking Abbey, which dates from the 7th century, but the vicar of St Margaret's Church, Mark Adams, lets us have exclusive access to the rooftop of the Curfew Tower. Plus, he gives us a very detailed history of the church. So please do subscribe, like us and whatnot, so that you don't miss out the next instalment.
From Acton Town to Wimbledon, from Brixton to beyond, love your London, have a banana.